Hello everyone, welcome back to this Python programming series. Today we'll be looking at the input statement, how we take input from the user and how we work on it. Now, the input statement, why do we need it? Why was it made? Now the developers obviously need to interact with the user data. Suppose you enter 2 plus 2 in a calculator. You need to enter in some way. You have buttons to enter it. But in your traditional computers and the new programs, you usually have dialog boxes, such as this one. You can change the file name or the extension of the file by using the dialog box. You can choose the location where the file should be stored and other stuff such as change the encoding time from ANSI to Unicode. Now these options or interactions are given by dialog boxes, but in Python we don't obviously have dialog boxes yet, but we will use the input statement. There are two types of input statement, the normal input statement and the raw input. Now I won't be discussing raw input much because it is used in the older versions of Python. So first of all, the input statement. What is the input statement? Now, the input statement is used to take data from the user. Obviously, we want to know his name, age, and other characteristics. So we will use the input statement to take that information from the user and then apply our algorithms or calculations on it. The default return type for input is string. Now, if you don't know what a return type is, don't worry. A return type is basically something like the input statement will always give us a string. It will not give us a integer or a float. By default, it always gives us a string. If somehow we do need an integer, obviously we will. If we want to take the age such as 13, we don't save it as a string. We will take it as an integer number. We will use typecasting. Now, especially typecasting, we already learned about typecasting. Now, the picture below, as you can see that the input statement says that enter your name. Now I haven't given any typecasting or any explicit typecast. I just wrote input and enter your name. Then I just printed the data type of it by using the type function. As you can see, it states that enter your name Alexander, and then the data type is string. As I said, by default it will always be string. Now another thing to note, as I discussed, raw input always gives a string. You cannot convert it. Now where's the main difference between input and raw input? In this picture, as you can see that I changed the typecast of the input. Now I wrote int and brackets in front of it. Now this means that whatever the user enters now will automatically be converted into an integer type. As you can see below, it now says that the variable age is an integer, not a string, because you typecasted it. Now in raw input you cannot do this because raw input always returns a string, and our raw input is used in older versions of Python such as 2 point series version. So we won't be using raw input, and don't worry about it. We will just be focusing on input statement. Now I will write a sample code here, such as I will take a name and print the name. Okay, but actually I will just take the name. When I run it, I will write 17. Now 17 is not a name, but it will still accept it. But there is a difference. It is printing the same. It looks like an integer number, but if we go to its type, I will just write type here now to know what is the data type now. After I run it again, oh, I missed a bracket. When I run it again, I entered 17. It's giving me string. Obviously, I can't perform mathematical operations on the 17 now because it's a string. You can't minus it, subtract it, or divide it, or do anything mathematical or arithmetic operators with it. This is a problem. So we should always remember to typecast it. Most of the time, people forget to typecast. It's not a problem, you will get the hang of it. Now I will convert it into integer. If I run again, it says it's an integer data type now. There's nothing much to input statement. It's just a small concept you should know about because we will be using it a lot in our future videos, and obviously you need to use it because how will you get the data from the user other way? There are different ways to take data from the user, such as file writing, databases, or using the input statement. For now we will be staying on input statement. That will be all for this video. I hope you understood the concept. Do know to subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed.